She laughed when I said I couldn't afford a lawyer, but the clock on our marriage was counting down louder than her jokes. By the time the courthouse elevators opened at 8:57 a.m., the person she underestimated wasn't me. It was the attorney she never expected. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. My name is Evan Mercer. I'm 36, born and raised in Texas, and I work night shift as a building systems tech for Johnson Controls at 2700 Post Oak Boulevard in Houston. I make $31.75 an hour, time and a half on overtime, which means a normal check lands around $1,273.50 after taxes if I pick up a Saturday. I met my wife, Lena, full name Lena Vargas Mercer, at a crawfish boil off Canal Street in 2017. We got married on October 6, 2018, under a pecan tree in my aunt's backyard in Pearland. For a long time, everything looked ordinary in that soft Texas way. Sunday HEB runs, Astros games on muted TVs, and bills paid from our joint chase, checking ending in 6123. If you trace a downfall, it's always smaller than the explosion people imagine. For me, it started with a wrist injury on a ladder the week of February 19, 2024. I was on a rooftop in a crosswind at 3:11 p.m., the wrench slipped, and my right wrist twisted. Not broken, but enough to push me to lighter duty for 6 weeks and cost me the overtime that padded our rent and car note. Lena said she'd handle the money while I healed. She had a steady job as a social media coordinator for a mid-sized events firm called Cypress Events, $56,000 base, sometimes more around wedding season. I didn't see a reason to argue with help. By the holidays, Lena had started to stay late, scheduling content shoots that somehow ended after midnight. On December 9, 2024, at 9:17 a.m. Central, the first breadcrumb slid across our kitchen counter, and I didn't know it yet. I was home changing out our refrigerator water filter when her laptop chimed. The screen flashed an email header from lenamercerevents@gmail.com to leasing@daphnesawyeryards.com. Subject: Application, Mercer, Evan. A second later, she snapped the lid shut and laughed, said it was for a brand collab at Sawyer Yards. I believed her. The first shock hit me on May 3, 2025 at 7:04 p.m., when our Chase app showed a new secure message and a balance that had been clipped down by $6,000 in one transfer. I confronted her, phone in my hand. Lena said she'd moved our emergency fund to a higher yield account and rolled her eyes like I'd asked whether the sun rises in the east. On May 20, 2025 at 6:42 p.m., a process server knocked on our door in Eastwood and handed me a petition for divorce filed in cause number 2025 DF 45127 in the 245th District Court of Harris County. The filing date was May 17, and the return of service had my name spelled perfectly. The petition claimed insupportability, asked for temporary spousal support from me to her, exclusive use of the RAV4, and a disproportionate share of the community estate because I was controlling with finances. On June 24, 2025, at exactly 9 a.m. on the 14th floor of 201 Caroline Street, Houston, Texas, 77002, I sat alone on a pew under buzzing fluorescents for the initial status conference. Lena arrived in a linen blazer with a lawyer named Grant Huxley from a firm in Midtown. As we waited for our case to be called, Lena leaned across the wooden divider and whispered, "Good luck without counsel, Evan. Maybe you can Google your way through it." I felt the oxygen leave my chest. Huxley smirked and asked the clerk to mark us ready. The judge that morning, Honorable Miriam Holcomb, issued the routine temporary orders and a stern reminder about disclosures. She said the Harris County Standing Order regarding property and conduct of the parties applied from the moment of filing, and that both sides owed Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 194 initial disclosures, names of witnesses, documents, and financials, within 30 days. I walked out with a copy of the order and a calm that felt like a bruise. I had 30 days to drown or learn to swim. The plan started on June 27, 2025, when I sat in a plastic chair at the Southwest Multi-Service Center at 6400 High Star Drive for a Friday evening legal clinic run by Houston volunteer lawyers. The intake worker wrote HVL 25-21837 across the top of my file and said they'd call if a pro bono match came through. On July 3 at 10:12 a.m., My phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. "This is Maya Patel," the voice said. "I can take your case through HVL. We have to move fast." Maya met me 2 days later off Millam Street with a yellow legal pad, a black Pilot G2, and a list. We went line by line. "Texas is community property," she said. "Family Code Section 3.002. It's not automatically 50-50. The judge divides it in a just and right manner under Section 7.001. Your wife wants a disproportionate share? Then she has to come clean. Rule 194 gives us your foothold." I handed over everything I had. My April 12th pay stub, our joint chase statements through March, the May secure message, and screenshots of Lena's Instagram stories showing late nights at Truck Yard Houston, 2118 Lamar Street. I didn't want to be petty. I wanted to be exact. On July 8th, Maya filed our inventory and appraisement with values down to the kitchen mixer. She also sent written discovery and a subpoena to J.P. Morgan Chase, Records Department for account XXXX 6123 and any linked accounts under Lena's SSN ending -3812. "They'll push back," she said. "But if there's a transfer to an undisclosed account, we'll see it." She sent a second subpoena to UPS store number 6141, requesting the rental agreement and payment history for any mailbox in Lena's name. And then she did something I never would have thought to do. She pulled my credit report and found a line I'd never seen. The Daphne at Sawyer Yards, application ID 24, DF 11217, pulled on December 9th, 2024 under Evan Mercer, with a signature that wasn't mine. The first receipt landed on July 22nd, 2025 at 2:08 p.m. in Maya's inbox. A Chase subpoena response, personal and confidential, that we reviewed at a two-top table in the tunnel level of the courthouse. There it was on the June statement, 05/03/2025, $6,000 online transfer to CHK. 8842, description, HGT savings. And there, on 11/14/2024, $18,430 domestic wire to Cypress Events LLC operating, reference CE, TX, 1114, memo seasonal float. Our HGT savings wasn't a real joint savings. It was an undisclosed account ending 8842 that only Lena controlled. The second receipt came from the UPS store. On March 29th, 2025 at 6:21 p.m., a rental agreement was opened for mailbox 154 at 1631 West 18th Street, Suite 1, paid with a Chase Sapphire card ending -2214 registered to Lena V. Mercer. The clerk's initials were JB. The rental note said business invoices and bank statements. Maya looped the documents with a blue tab and wrote receipt in capital letters on the edge of the page. The third receipt was hiding in plain sight, the email header I'd seen months earlier. Maya had me forward the draft I'd found in the laptop's local cache. She expanded the header lines on her phone. Received SPF, pass, google.com. Domain of lenamerservants@gmail.com designates 209.85.220.41 as permitted sender. DKM, pass, date. Monday, December 9th, 2024, 9:17 and 22 seconds -0600. Attached was a PDF of a rental application with my name, my SSN, and a squiggled Evan Mercer signature that looked like someone wrote it while standing on a bus. The fourth receipt was petty only if you didn't know what to look for. On February 10th, 2025 at 8:13 and 44 seconds p.m., Lena posted a boomerang at Truck Yard labeled Late Meeting. In the background, a man in a black Astros cap slid a card across the bar. When Maya had me pull the metadata Lena forgot to strip, the EXIF recorded the time, the geotag, and the device. It also mapped to a Lyft ride in Lena's email at 7:38 p.m. that night. Trip ID 9F9A, TX, 202502210, picked up from Bayou Fitness, 1901, Taylor Street, dropped at 2118, Lamar Street. If she could be that sloppy on Instagram, Maya said, what else was she hiding? While all of this built, Lena kept the same script. On June 18th, 2025 at 10:24 p.m., she texted, "You can't even afford counsel, Ev. Just sign." On July 1st, 2025, Huxley sent a 2-page letter offering a generous settlement if I agreed to $1,250 per month in temporary spousal support and turned over the RAV4 for work purposes. I printed the letter and slid it into a cheap manila folder from the Dollar Tree on Cavalcade. I went to work every night, changed filters I could one-hand, and learned how Harris County family court calendars were built. Our temporary orders hearing was set for August 5th, 2025 at 9 a.m. in the 245th. I arrived at 8:24 a.m. in my cleanest navy shirt, the one with the good collar, with a notebook, a bottle of water, and my phone in airplane mode. Lena was already there, seated with Huxley, scrolling her Apple Watch. She had on a dress I recognized from a Nordstrom rack bag, $129.97, that I'd seen on the receipt in our trash on July 12th. The clerk called cause number 2025, DF 45127, Mercer versus Mercer. I stood when my name was said. Huxley stood like he owned the floor. The elevator dinged at 8:57 a.m. and my stomach fell in a way I'll remember when I'm 80. Maya Patel walked in, bar card clipped to her lapel, a narrow binder under her arm, and the steady face of someone who's already done the math twice. She whispered hello to the bailiff, placed the binder on counsel table, and nodded at me like we were just picking up a conversation we'd paused for a minute. Lena didn't notice her at first. Then she did. Her face drained the way faces do right before a hurricane changes color in the sky. Judge Holcomb asked whether we had our Rule 194 disclosures. Huxley said yes, with a few supplemental documents forthcoming. Maya said we'd received an inventory that didn't list account 8842, a mailbox rental, or a wire transfer to a business owned by the petitioner. Holcomb's eyebrows made a small jump. Ms. Mercer, she said, if there are assets or accounts omitted, now is the time to clarify. Huxley went first, arguing that she needed the RAV4 to commute and that I should pay $1,250 in temporary support because I significantly out-earned Lena. My client earns approximately $58,000 plus seasonal bonuses, he said, while Mr. Mercer's overtime puts him in the mid-70s. Maya waited, hands folded, and when Holcomb nodded our way, she opened the binder and tugged a blue-tabbed packet free. Under Texas Family Code Section 3.002, community property includes income produced by either spouse during marriage, she said. Under Section 7.001, the division must be just and right. We have 4 discrete issues affecting any just and right division and the temporary orders today. She set the first receipt on the podium. From Chase, subpoena response received July 22, 2025 at 2:08 p.m. $6,000 transferred on May 3rd to account 8842, not listed on petitioner's inventory, and $18,430 wired on November 14, 2024 to Cypress Events LLC operating, reference CTX 1114. We request a freeze and accounting under the standing order. Holcomb looked over her glasses. Ms. Mercer, is there a Chase account ending in 8842 not disclosed in your inventory? Lena stared at the table. Huxley asked for a moment and shuffled pages that weren't there. The second receipt, Maya said, is from UPS store number 6141, rental of mailbox 154 on March 29, 2025 at 6:21 p.m., paid with card, 2214 in petitioner's name, note, business invoices and bank statements. Again, not disclosed. Holcomb's pen clicked once. Continue. The third is an email header dated December 9, 2024 at 9 hours 17 minutes and 22 seconds-0600 from linnemerceravents@gmail.com to leasing@daphnesawyerYards.com with a rental application for Evan Mercer attached, using his SSN and a forged signature. We have the DKM and SPF pass lines, Your Honor. Holcomb's face went still. Was an application submitted in Mr. Mercer's name without his consent, Ms. Mercer? Lena tried to talk and got stuck between 2 stories. It was a template, she said finally, thin as a thread. I must have. I was just testing the portal. Maya slid the 4th sheet forward. Finally, petitioner's Instagram story from February 10, 2025 at 8:13 and 44 seconds p.m. Geotag Truck Yard Houston, captioned, Late Meeting. while her sworn affidavit states she was home working on a budget with Mr. Mercer from 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. We've matched the EXIF data to a Lyft record at 7:38 p.m. Trip ID 9F9A TX 202-50210. Huxley tried to object to social media irrelevancies, but Holcomb raised a palm. Counsel sit. Mr. Mercer, were you home the evening of February 10th? I told the truth. I was icing my wrist at 8:15 p.m., watching the Rockets on mute, and the apartment was quiet. Holcomb took a breath. Here's what we're going to do on temporary orders. Exclusive use of the RAV4 goes to Mr. Mercer for work commute. Petitioner will have use of her Corolla. The Chase accounts ending in 6123 and 8842 are frozen except for ordinary living expenses, and petitioner will produce a full accounting of the $18,430 wire within 7 days. No temporary spousal support at this time. I'm not finding the comparative need established on this record. And I'm awarding $3,500 in temporary attorney's fees to Houston volunteer lawyers, payable by petitioner within 30 days, as a sanction for discovery omissions under the court's inherent authority in Rule 215. She paused and added, Ms. Mercer, if I find further concealment, I will consider a disproportionate division against you. Lena didn't look at me as we filed out. She stood in the hallway with Huxley and cried without moving her face. At 10:42 a.m., Maya and I sat on a windowsill by the vending machines, and she handed me a granola bar like we'd just finished a workout rather than the first climb of a mountain. This isn't the finish, she said. But you have leverage now. The finish came faster than I imagined. On August 21st, 2025, Huxley emailed a settlement proposal that escalated from smug to desperate. He offered a 62-38 split in my favor, repayment of the $18,430 to the community with 5% interest, and an agreement that Lena would reimburse $7,500 in attorney's fees to HVL at final. He also agreed to a stipulation that the mailbox would be closed and no further accounts opened without notice. He asked for one thing: no finding of fraud on the community in the decree. Maya explained that if we pressed for a fraud finding under Texas Family Code Section 7.009, we could end up in a longer fight. Sometimes the best revenge is arithmetic, she said. We countered with 65/35, repayment of the wire and the $6,000 transfer, and a mutual non-disparagement clause. On September 2nd, 2025 at 1:30 p.m., in the same courthouse at 201 Caroline, Lena signed an agreed final decree of divorce that awarded me the RAV4 outright, $24,430 in reimbursements to the community, the wire plus the transfer with interest, a 65/35 split of the banked savings, and the apartment furniture we bought on a $1,048 receipt from IKEA on April 6, 2023. She kept her Corolla, her Cypress Events laptop, and whatever pride she had left. The numbers changed my life in dull, permanent ways. On September 10th, a cashier's check for $7,500 was delivered to Houston volunteer lawyers, reference HVL, 25-21837, paid by Lena under the decree. My Chase app showed the reimbursed $24,430 at 9:08 a.m. on September 12th. Memo, Decree 65/35. I closed out mailbox 154 myself that Friday and told the clerk he could keep the last month's rent. I drove home in the RAV4 with the windows down on I-45, and the wrist that had started this whole thing felt like it finally belonged to me again. People ask if I feel vindicated. That's not the word. Vindication is a parade. What I felt was the clean silence of a room after a lie leaves it. I learned the way facts stack. A date here, a receipt there, a statute humming in the background like an air handler that only draws your attention when it fails. I learned that I could sit on a wooden pew and let somebody mock me for not having money, and that I could measure the distance between my humiliation and my leverage in the thickness of a binder. At 8:57 a.m. on that Tuesday, when the elevator doors opened and my pro bono counsel walked in with receipts, Lena froze. It wasn't just the paper. It was the way the details canceled the theater. It was Rule 194 walking into the room wearing a human face. It was a standing order given weight by a judge who was tired of games. It was a man with a busted wrist leaning on a table he'd assembled by hand and realizing it would hold. I kept one scrap of paper from the whole thing, taped inside the cover of my notebook. Cause number 2025, DF 45127. My name. Her name, 245th District Court. The blue ink scrawl, agreed final decree signed. I glance at it sometimes before work. The building wakes up, and I listen to the sound of proper airflow, registers trimmed just right, pressure where it belongs. You learn to love quiet when you've lived through noise. We weren't rich enough to hire a lawyer, so a free one taught me the difference between a good story and a true record. When Lena laughed in that lobby, I thought I'd already lost. Turns out I was just between exhibits. And when the judge said just and right, I realized that you don't have to be loud to be heard. You just have to be exact. The best revenge isn't rage, it's consequences tallied in ink. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.